You ever start something strong and then just fade out? We've all been there. Motivation hits like a wave, but consistency? That's the tide that actually carries you to shore. Today I'm going to share 10 secrets that separate the people who dream from the people who do. This isn't about hype. It's about habits. Because staying consistent isn't about being perfect, it's about showing up when it's hard. Start small, stay steady. It sounds simple, almost too simple. But that's exactly why most people overlook it. We live in a world obsessed with big results, quick changes, and overnight success. Everyone wants to make a massive leap, but almost no one wants to take small, consistent steps. Yet that's where real growth lies, in the small, steady, almost invisible moments that compound over time. When you start small, you lower the barrier between thinking and doing. You make action easier, and when action is easy, repetition becomes possible. Most people fail not because they lack motivation, but because they set the bar too high. They try to transform their entire life in a week. They want to go from zero to hero overnight, and when that doesn't happen, frustration takes over. The gym feels like a mountain, learning a skill feels impossible, and discipline feels like punishment. But starting small removes that friction. It tells your brain, I can do this. And once your brain believes that, it opens the door to consistency. You don't have to climb the whole staircase, you just have to take one step, and then another. When you begin with something small, you trick your mind into starting. The biggest enemy of consistency is the weight of expectation. You tell yourself you'll work out for an hour every day, but after 3 days life gets in the way. You're tired, busy, or unmotivated, and you skip a day. Then skipping becomes easier than starting again. But if you begin small, 5 minutes, 1 page, 1 simple action, you lower the resistance. Suddenly, there's no argument in your head, no negotiation. You just do it, because it's simple enough to do even on your worst day. Small doesn't mean insignificant. It means sustainable. The person who walks 10 minutes every day will outlast the one who runs 10 miles once a week and quits after 2. The secret is not in the size of your effort, but in the regularity of it. Small actions repeated over time create momentum, and momentum is powerful. It doesn't demand motivation, it builds it. Each small win fuels the next, and before you know it, what was once hard becomes automatic. Think about how habits form. No one wakes up suddenly disciplined. Discipline is built like muscle, through repetition, through small, intentional acts. You brush your teeth not because it's exciting, but because it's automatic. You built that habit through consistency, not through passion. The same applies to every goal. You want to read more? Start with a page. You want to write? Start with a paragraph. You want to eat healthier? Change one meal. The key is to make it so small that it's almost impossible to fail. Because once you stop failing, you stop quitting. There's also something powerful about removing the pressure to be perfect. Starting small gives you permission to be human. You don't have to get it right immediately. You just have to begin. Perfection is the enemy of progress. The people who wait for the perfect time, the perfect setup, the perfect motivation, they never start. The people who take one imperfect step forward every day, they build consistency without even realizing it. Your brain thrives on evidence. When you start small and succeed, even in tiny ways, you prove to yourself that you can. That proof becomes belief. And belief becomes drive. Each small success builds self-trust, and self-trust is the foundation of consistency. You begin to rely on yourself to show up for yourself even when no one's watching. That's how consistency turns from a struggle into a standard. The beauty of starting small is that it grows with you. What feels small today won't stay small forever. 5 minutes turns into 10. 1 page turns into 5. 1 action turns into a habit, and that habit turns into identity. Suddenly, you're not just someone trying to be consistent, you are consistent. You don't have to force it anymore. It becomes who you are, because you built it layer by layer, step by step. So, when you think about your goals, stop asking, how fast can I get there? And start asking, how small can I start? Because it's not about speed, it's about sustainability. The small start is what keeps you going when motivation fades. It's what builds discipline, creates momentum, and eventually transforms your life. Starting small doesn't mean thinking small. It means you're smart enough to play the long game, to focus on what matters most. Showing up every single day, no matter how small the step may be. Discipline beats motivation. Motivation is the spark that gets you started, but discipline is the engine that keeps you moving when the spark dies out. Motivation feels good, it's emotional, it's exciting. It makes you believe that today is the day everything changes. But the truth is, motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes like the weather. Some days you wake up ready to conquer the world, and other days you can barely get out of bed. Discipline, on the other hand, doesn't ask how you feel. It just asks if you're committed. It's what keeps you going when every part of you wants to stop. Discipline isn't glamorous. It's not a motivational quote or a sudden rush of energy. It's the quiet decision to do what you said you'd do, even when you don't feel like it. The most successful people aren't the most motivated. They're the most disciplined. They've trained themselves to act regardless of their mood. They understand that emotions can't be trusted to lead the way. Feelings fluctuate, but habits anchor you. Discipline turns your goals into routines, and routines into results. People often confuse motivation with commitment. They wait to feel ready before they start. But the truth is, you'll rarely feel ready. There's always going to be something missing. Time, energy, inspiration. If you rely on motivation to get things done, you'll spend most of your life waiting. Discipline doesn't wait. It takes the first step even when it's uncomfortable. It's the difference between "I'll try" and "I will." When you choose discipline, you choose progress over comfort. Think about any area of your life where you've succeeded. It wasn't because you were motivated every day. It was because you showed up on the days you weren't. You went to the gym even when you didn't want to. You studied when your mind was tired. You worked on your goals when no one was watching. That's discipline in motion. It's not about feeling inspired, it's about being consistent. It's the muscle that grows every time you do something you don't want to do, but know you need to do. Motivation might start the fire, but discipline keeps it burning. And here's the truth. The more you rely on discipline, the less you need motivation. Because when you build discipline, you build momentum. You don't have to think about starting. It becomes automatic. You turn "I have to" into "I just do." That shift changes everything. It's how you move from struggling to consistent, from wishing to winning. Discipline also teaches you resilience. Motivation disappears when things get tough. Discipline doesn't care how tough it gets. It adjusts and keeps going. When you hit obstacles, discipline tells you to find another way instead of giving up. It teaches you that showing up is half the battle. Even small progress made through discipline adds up, while motivation without action adds nothing. The people who rely on motivation burn out quickly. The people who rely on discipline build endurance. The beauty of discipline is that it creates freedom. Most people think discipline limits them, but the opposite is true. When you're disciplined, you control your habits instead of letting your habits control you. You create structure, and structure creates space for growth. A disciplined person doesn't live at the mercy of emotions or distractions. They don't waste time deciding whether to act, they've already decided. That's real freedom, the kind that comes from self-control. Discipline isn't something you're born with, it's something you train. Every time you choose to follow through instead of giving in, you strengthen it. It's like building muscle. At first it's uncomfortable, but the more you use it, the stronger it gets. You start small, and over time discipline becomes part of your identity. You stop negotiating with yourself. You stop needing to feel ready. You just do it, because it's who you are now. When you live by motivation, you're ruled by feelings. When you live by discipline, you're guided by principles. Motivation says, do it when it feels right. Discipline says, do it because it's right. That's the difference between temporary effort and lasting change. Motivation is like fuel that runs out. Discipline is like a battery that recharges through action. The more you use it, the stronger it becomes. And once you've built that muscle, you can apply it anywhere, to your goals, your habits, your mindset, your life. There will always be days when motivation fails you. There will be mornings you don't want to get up, moments you want to quit, times when progress feels invisible. That's where discipline shows up quietly and does the work anyway. It doesn't care if you're tired or uninspired. It just asks you to honor your promise to yourself. Because at the end of the day, discipline is not about being harsh. It's about being loyal to your own growth. It's about showing up for your future self, even when your present self doesn't feel like it. Track your progress daily. It sounds simple, but it's one of the most powerful habits you can build if you want to stay consistent. When you track your progress, you give your mind evidence that your effort matters. You turn invisible effort into visible proof. The human brain craves feedback. It wants to know that what you're doing is making a difference. Without tracking, it's easy to feel stuck, even when you're actually moving forward. That feeling of nothing's changing is what kills consistency more than anything else. But when you see progress, even small progress, it reignites your motivation and strengthens your discipline. Tracking your progress doesn't have to be complicated. You don't need fancy tools or apps. A simple notebook, a wall calendar, or even a note on your phone can be enough. What matters is the habit of recording what you did, how you felt, and what improved. Every time you write it down, you're reinforcing the message, I'm showing up. You create a pattern your mind can see, and that pattern builds momentum. Momentum builds confidence. And confidence keeps you consistent. When you track daily, you start noticing patterns. What times of the day you perform best, what environments help you focus, and what triggers hold you back. This awareness is priceless. Most people repeat the same mistakes because they don't reflect on them. They think they're failing because they're not capable, but the truth is, they're just not tracking. When you track, you can adjust. You can see what's working and what's not. You stop guessing and start managing your own growth. There's something powerful about visual progress. When you check a box, cross off a day, or see a streak building, it lights up your brain's reward system. It gives you a small dose of satisfaction, a signal that says, keep going. That's why consistency feels easier when you track it. You're literally training your brain to associate effort with achievement. The visual record becomes a story of progress, one you can see, touch, and be proud of. Even on the days you feel unproductive, you can look back and realize you've come further than you think. The process of tracking also keeps you honest. It's easy to lie to yourself about how much effort you've given. You might think you're working hard, but when you see the data, you realize where you've been inconsistent. That honesty can sting at first, but it's the kind of truth that helps you grow. You stop living in illusion and start taking control. The moment you start measuring your actions, you take responsibility for your results. And responsibility is where transformation begins. Daily tracking also teaches accountability. You're no longer relying on willpower alone. You're building a relationship with your own progress. You're saying, I care enough about my growth to measure it. That simple act turns your goals from wishes into commitments. It reminds you that consistency is not about intensity, it's about attention. When you pay attention to your progress, you naturally want to protect it. You don't want to break the chain. You don't want to lose what you've built. That's how daily tracking turns effort into a lifestyle. It's also a great way to stay motivated without forcing it. When motivation fades, looking back at your progress can reignite your drive. You see the work you've already done, the small wins that built your foundation, and suddenly you realize that quitting would waste all of it. You remember why you started. You see how far you've come. That reflection fuels the next step forward. It becomes a silent reminder that progress is happening, even if it's slow. Tracking your progress daily doesn't just measure results, it builds awareness of your habits. You start to see how your routines, your mindset, and your choices align with your goals. You learn to recognize when you're slipping before it turns into a setback. You catch yourself early and correct course. That kind of awareness separates those who drift from those who grow. Because growth is not about perfection. It's about paying attention and improving one step at a time. Even the smallest notes add up. One sentence per day can show a year of growth. One check mark per day can show a streak of resilience. The act of documenting itself becomes meaningful. You're telling your story in real time, one action at a time. And when you look back, you'll see that the story isn't about one big leap. It's about hundreds of small, consistent steps that led to transformation. Tracking is not about judgment. It's about clarity. It's a mirror that reflects effort, not perfection. It's a way to stay grounded when progress feels slow and to stay humble when progress feels fast. It reminds you that every day counts, that each effort matters, and that consistency is built not in moments of inspiration, but in the quiet discipline of showing up and keeping record of your journey. Rest is part of consistency. Most people think consistency means going hard every single day, never stopping, never slowing down, always pushing forward no matter what. That mindset is what burns people out faster than anything else. Real consistency isn't about doing everything all the time. It's about doing the right things for a long time. And to do something for a long time, you need rest. Rest is not weakness. It's not laziness. It's recovery. It's the reset button that allows you to keep showing up. Without rest, your mind dulls, your body slows, and your motivation fades. You can't sustain discipline if you're running on empty. When you rest, you're not stopping your progress, you're protecting it. You're giving your mind and body the chance to recharge so you can come back sharper, stronger, and more focused. The people who last the longest are not the ones who work the hardest all the time. They're the ones who know when to step back. They understand that progress happens in cycles: effort, rest, recovery, growth. Each part is essential. Skipping rest is like skipping sleep. You can do it for a while, but eventually, it catches up with you. We live in a culture that glorifies exhaustion. People brag about being busy, about sleeping less, about never taking breaks. But that's not strength. That's imbalance. True consistency is sustainable. It's built on rhythm, not chaos. You need moments of stillness to balance your moments of effort. Think about how athletes train. They don't work out every muscle every day. They train, recover, and grow. Their rest is strategic. It's part of the process. And that's exactly how consistency works. You can't pour from an empty cup. You need time to refill it. Rest doesn't always mean doing nothing. Sometimes it means doing something different. It can mean taking a walk, spending time in nature, reading, meditating, or simply being present without pressure. It's about giving your brain space to breathe. When you rest intentionally, ideas start to flow again. You gain clarity, perspective, and motivation that you can't get while you're constantly in motion. Many breakthroughs happen in moments of rest, not in moments of stress. There's a deep connection between rest and discipline. It takes discipline to push yourself, but it also takes discipline to pause. Most people are addicted to movement. They fear stillness because they think it means losing progress. But consistency is not about speed, it's about endurance. If you burn yourself out chasing short-term results, you lose the ability to stay consistent in the long term. Rest keeps you in the game. It resets your energy so you can keep moving forward at a steady pace. Rest also helps regulate your emotions. When you're tired, everything feels harder. Small setbacks feel like failures. Minor challenges feel like mountains. Rest gives your mind space to recover emotional balance. You make better decisions when you're rested. You stay calmer, more patient, more focused. Why? The version of you that's rested performs better, learns faster, and stays motivated longer. That's why rest isn't optional. It's strategic fuel for consistency. Ignoring rest leads to the exact opposite of what you want. When you push without pause, your body fights back. You get tired, frustrated, distracted, and eventually you stop altogether. That's not consistency. That's collapse. Rest prevents that. It keeps your performance stable. It keeps your energy consistent. It keeps your mind in sync with your goals. And when you learn to rest without guilt, you become unstoppable. Because you're not running from exhaustion, you're managing your energy like a professional. Rest also builds trust with yourself. When you give yourself permission to rest, you send a message to your mind that you value balance. You're not just chasing results, you're caring for the person who's creating them. You become more aware of your limits and learn how to manage them intelligently. That's what separates people who last from those who burn out. The ones who last understand that consistency isn't about pushing harder every day. It's about knowing when to push and when to pause. Sometimes rest feels uncomfortable because you've been taught to associate it with quitting. But resting is not quitting, it's preparing. It's the pause between breaths, the silence between beats, the moment before you rise again. Every strong performance, every great creation, every lasting success is built with intentional pauses. The strongest people are not the ones who never stop. They're the ones who know how to rest with purpose. When you rest well, you return stronger. You regain clarity, focus, and passion. You start to enjoy the process again instead of dreading it. Consistency isn't about draining your energy. It's about managing it wisely. You can't give your best if you're constantly exhausted. You can't stay focused if your mind is overwhelmed. Rest restores that balance. It's what keeps you from losing momentum when life gets heavy. It's what allows you to show up tomorrow with the same drive you had yesterday. Remove distractions ruthlessly. Consistency demands focus, and focus cannot survive in a noisy environment. Distractions are the silent killers of progress. They don't come at you with a loud warning. They sneak in quietly. One notification, one scroll, one unnecessary thought at a time. Before you know it, hours are gone, energy is drained, and your goal feels further away. If you want to stay consistent, you have to protect your attention like it's your most valuable asset, because it is. Every distraction you allow steals a small piece of your focus, and once your focus is scattered, your consistency starts to crumble. Most people think they struggle with discipline when in reality, they struggle with distraction. It's not that they can't stay consistent, it's that they can't stay concentrated. Your mind cannot move forward in 10 directions at once. To stay consistent, you need clarity, and clarity comes from focus. The modern world makes focus harder than ever. Our phones, social media, constant messages, they all compete for attention. The mind becomes restless, addicted to novelty, jumping from one thing to another. Consistency becomes impossible because attention never stays long enough in one place to build momentum. The first step is awareness. You can't remove distractions until you identify them. Look honestly at where your time and energy go. Notice what pulls you away from your priorities. Sometimes it's obvious: a phone, a conversation, a TV show. Other times it's subtle: overthinking, multitasking, procrastination, disguised as productivity. Distractions aren't always external. Sometimes they come from within. The thoughts that tell you to check something just for a second, or the doubt that convinces you to delay action. When you start noticing these patterns, you can begin to break them. Removing distractions ruthlessly means setting boundaries that protect your focus. It means creating an environment where it's easier to stay consistent than to drift away. You silence notifications, turn off alerts, and limit the spaces where distraction can live. You create a physical and mental space dedicated to your goals. The cleaner your environment, the clearer your thinking. When your space supports your purpose, consistency becomes natural. You don't have to fight for focus every time. You've designed your surroundings to help you stay locked in. But distractions aren't just things that waste time. They're also things that drain emotional energy. Negative people, unnecessary drama, constant comparison. These are mental distractions that consume your motivation. You can't stay consistent if your energy is always being pulled toward things that don't matter. You have to learn the art of saying no. No to noise, no to negativity, no to obligations that don't align with your vision. Every yes to distraction is a no to progress. Protecting your focus sometimes means disappointing others, so you don't disappoint yourself. Consistency thrives in simplicity. The fewer distractions you allow, the more space you have for the things that truly matter. Many people think success is about adding more, but it's often about removing what's unnecessary. Every time you cut out a distraction, you make room for deeper work, longer focus, and meaningful progress. Simplicity creates space for discipline to breathe. You stop wasting energy on small decisions and start using that energy to move forward. It also helps to schedule your distractions instead of letting them schedule you. If you decide when to rest, when to check your phone, or when to socialize, you stay in control. Distractions become intentional breaks, not constant interruptions. This small shift changes everything. You're no longer reacting to the world. You're directing it. You tell your attention where to go instead of letting it be pulled wherever it wants. Removing distractions also means mastering your mental environment. Your thoughts can distract you just as much as your surroundings. Doubt, fear, and self-criticism are internal noise that break focus. You have to learn how to quiet that noise. That might mean journaling, meditating, or simply practicing awareness when your mind starts to wander. The more you train your attention, the stronger it becomes. Focus is a muscle. It grows through repetition and resistance. Every time you bring your mind back to the present, you strengthen your ability to stay consistent. Sometimes people confuse productivity with busyness. They fill their day with tasks but make no real progress. That's another form of distraction, disguised as effort. Real productivity is about doing what matters most and doing it well. To be consistent, you have to let go of everything that doesn't move you closer to your goal.